for 5 minutes. Mr. Costa.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for this important, timely hearing. It's always good to have the Secretary of Agriculture before the committee. Mr. Ribble, I did not know until now that you and I both share a common bond. I suspect other members of the committee as well grew up in a dairy farm. And if we didn't have this job, we could probably get a job milking cows, vaccinating, dehorning, pulling calves, some redeemable skills. On the timeline and the statement, Mr. Secretary, that you just made with regards to the dairy industry and the peaks and the valleys, and I think there's a common concern here because we've seen certainly the worst times that I've ever witnessed in 3 generations of a dairy family from California. I mean, I heard my parents talk about the tough times early on before I was around, but I've never witnessed it this bad over a continuum period of time. Do you have timelines? I mean, you clearly said your commission, my legislation, National Milk. I think there is consensus, but I would like to be able for us to tell the dairymen in the United States that we're going to try to come together with a response in the next 6 months that tries to do the things that you articulated that I think we all feel similarly about.
Representative, we're happy to work with the chair in this committee and the Senate side to do whatever is necessary. We're happy to roll up our sleeves and begin to work now if that's well,
but I think we need some milestones. I mean, if we don't have them in place, we just things just kind of roll along. Your commission's been in place now for over a year. Do they have a concluding report to you at some point?
It's coming out the first week of March.
Okay, and then it seems to me that's a milestone. So I know the chairman and the ranking member have expressed concerns, as many of us have. It just seems to me that we ought to try to, after this hearing, see if there's the will and if we think we have a consensus approach to make the changes for the industry, that we had to set some timelines.
I don't know that it's my place to set the timeline
well, no,
for the committee, but I'm happy to work with
No, I'm not asking you to set them for the committee. I'm asking us for trying to sit down and single out the correspondence that I've had, but there's been some constituent inquiries to the USDA that has not received a response and from some of the associations out west, and I'd like to make sure that that's on your radar screen and you respond. I'll bring that to your attention at a separate time. Finally, under the foreign agriculture efforts, I'm on the subcommittee and we're meeting with some of our counterparts on market access programs and foreign market development programs in terms of our exports. Again, this relates to the 2012 Farm Bill, but how well do you think they've worked?
Well, we've got a record year in exports, and we recently did a study that every dollar that has been invested from USDA, in our view, has generated $35 of activity. So I would say that's a pretty good return for the investment. The President has proposed an increase in this area of the budget, notwithstanding the difficult fiscal times we face, because it is capable of generating more activity and more involvement.
You expect the South Korea trade agreement to further boost exports?
Well, absolutely. 60% of our ag trade with Korea will have tariffs reduced immediately.
All right. My time's expired. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
The gentleman from California's time's expired. The chair would extend the gentleman's time by 1 minute, and would the gentleman yield for a kind of a question comment?
Yes.
The gentleman brings up the issue of GIFSA, and I think we were all part of the effort of 115 members of Congress back in October when we wrote asking for an economic analysis of the proposed GIFSA rule. There's few rules that the gentleman would agree will have more impact on livestock agriculture than this GIFSA rule. Thinking about that letter and the discussions among the various members, I'd turn to the Secretary and ask, the economic impact analysis that will be done is critically important. One of the things we asked for and that you set the motion in the process, is it possible or could we have an assurance that that economic impact analysis can be subjected, that cost-benefit analysis, I should say, can be subjected to independent peer review and perhaps a notice and a comment process? Because there's very few things we'll do that are more important than this GIFSA rule.
Mr. Chairman, I will I want to take an opportunity to visit with my team about that request, especially as it relates to a peer review. We do want to get this done, and we have received thousands of comments, and we have received a lot of direction in terms of what ought to be included or not included in an analysis. It's fairly extensive what's been proposed, and I've got a lot of faith and confidence in Joe Glauber to be able to do this job properly.
Well, you're absolutely right, Mr. Secretary. And getting it right is the most important thing, and you've demonstrated by a willingness to add extra time to analyze the process over the course of recent months. You obviously care, and I appreciate that fully. But the ability to have an independent peer review and to have notice and comment time on that cost-benefit analysis seems to me, and I'd yield to the gentleman from California, seems to be a very important part of getting this right.
Mr. Chairman, I couldn't agree with you more, and I appreciate the time to further extend the comments on this. For the new members of the Ag Committee who haven't been a part of our effort in the last Congress, we spent a great deal of time in a bipartisan effort to ensure that we got this right. And I concur with the Chairman. We appreciate the fact that the Secretary extended the time period, but the peer review is going to be critical because this is an issue that clearly not only affects the livestock industry throughout the United States, but it has implications and a ripple effect on our ability to export U.S. beef products abroad. We have seen Japan, we've seen other countries use what I would refer to as justifications that I don't think hold merit to prevent importation of American beef to their countries. We had a similar situation in South Korea that we had to deal with. So getting this right and getting it right in a way that has the consensus of, I think, this committee as well as those in the industry is going to be critical to the long-term well-being of the U.S. livestock industry. And I'm sure you'll continue, Mr. Secretary, to find a consensus among the members of this committee on that point.
And we'll put our request in writing, Mr. Secretary. Gentleman's time has expired. The chair now turns to the gentleman from Illinois for his 5 minutes, Mr. Schilling.